Thank you. Good evening. I'm Annette Insdorf, and what a joy it is to be back on this stage live for a preview and conversation about The Sun. It will be released November 11th by Sony Classics, and I think that you're going to see artists working at the peak of their craft. This domestic drama, it's about two intersecting families grappling with the tension that grows from an alienated teenager. And it stars Hugh Jackman, whose richly textured performance is quite far from the roles he's associated with, like Wolverine in the X-Men series, or Jean Valjean in Les Mis, for which he received an Oscar nomination. And if he's been celebrated for that unique combination of song and dance leading man, as in The Greatest Showman, well, you can see those talents currently on Broadway, where he's starring in The Music Man. But The Sun is in a far more somber register. It was made by Florian Zeller. He is an award-winning French novelist, playwright, screenwriter, and director, and his plays, including The Father, The Mother, and The Son, 3 different ones, have been staged in over 45 countries. The Father was his debut as a screenwriter-director in 2020, and it won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. And Anthony Hopkins, who, by the way, does have a small role in tonight's film, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor in that film. The Sun is based on Zeller's play Le Fils, which premiered in Paris in 2018. Co-star Laura Dern, well, her memorable performances, yeah. They have graced films including Citizen Ruth, Little Fockers, Rambling Rose, Wild at Heart, Blue Velvet, and the Jurassic Park franchise. And in 2019, she was amazing, so different in 2 films. Some of you probably saw her in Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story as that shark-like lawyer. and she won the Oscar that year for Best Supporting Actress in that film. But in Greta Gerwig's Little Women, which we had on this stage right before the pandemic, she was a model of empathy. Her Marmee was maternal kindness, indelible. And playing Beth is Vanessa Kirby, a BAFTA-winning actress, mainly from theater. I mean, that's where she made her bones, but her film roles include Pieces of a Woman, for which she received an Oscar nomination in 2020, and in a different register, Mission Impossible Fallout, and also Agnieszka Holland's drama Mr. Jones. On television, she played Princess Margaret in The Crown from 2016 to 17. So both of these gifted actresses are going to join Hugh Jackman, Florian Zeller, and me on this stage after a 10-minute intermission. And now, The Sun. Welcome to the director and the stars of The Sun. I am so lucky to be sharing this stage with these people. I am going to start off with some questions for the individual talent here, and then we will take some audience questions in the last 15 minutes or so with traveling microphones. So I'm going to start with Hugh Jackman because I gather that you were quite proactive in trying to get the role of Peter. Could you tell us why and what you did? How did you get onto Florian Zeller's radar?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So my agent rang me one day and said, "Have you seen The Father?" And I said, "Of course." I loved that film. I was deeply, deeply moved by it. And I knew of Florian's work. We almost did a play together. Timing-wise, it didn't work out about 6 or 7 years ago. And she said, do you know The Sun? I said, I know of it, but I haven't seen it. And she said, you should read it because there's a couple of other actors being talked about, but I think this is your role. That's a great thing to say to an actor, by the way. So I read the play that day and immediately was moved and felt a compulsion, the kind of feeling as an actor that is rare, but you just dream of, where you feel a deep urgency to play a role, to be part of a story that I feel is urgent and for now, and also a fear of playing a role. I think both those things are important, to know that it's going to be a challenge, or you're going to do something that maybe has not been asked of you before, or go to a depth or different place than perhaps you've ever been. So all those ingredients for me were immediate, and I rang my agent and I said, I have to play this part. And she said, well, you better get to work. And I said, listen, could you get me Florian's email? I'd like to say I wrote a letter, it's more romantic, but I just emailed him. And I emailed him saying basically that, how much I loved the story, how much I loved the part. I said, this is not very Hollywood, or I'm not a very good poker player. I would love to play the part. Having said that, I hear you may be dancing with some other actors, and I'm not the kind of guy to cut in on a dance. So if you are, then good luck, and I can't wait to see the movie. It's not true, I probably wouldn't have watched the movie, but no offense. But I said, if you're not, I would love to talk to you. And he emailed me back that day and said, no, this is not true. I'm not talking to anyone else, let's speak. And so we got on a Zoom the next day, and I will never forget going to that Zoom. I have a weird situation in my house. It's sort of like a loft, so there's nowhere private. So I don't know if you knew this, but I did the Zoom in my bathroom. So, and I tried to make it look like a neutral space, but I'm actually going red telling you this now. And 7 or 8 minutes into that conversation, Florian offered me the part, which I was not expecting. But I was on my way to that meeting, terrified to get it and terrified not to get it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
So I'm a stalker, basically. If there's any other directors here, if you see me walk up, cross to the other side of the street, that's clear.
And for Florian, now, I know that you work with Christopher Hampton. He translates your plays into English. Tell us a little bit more about the origin of this particular film. Did you know when you were making The Father that you would then do a film of The Son? And what was it about the play itself that led you to feel that this should be a motion picture?
So, hello everybody. So there is several questions, but it's true that The Son is also the adaptation of my plays. And before I did The Father, I knew already that I wanted to do The Son next. I didn't take the time to question that desire because the desire was so strong. I really felt that it was a story that I wanted to tell, a story that needed to be told. And it comes also from what I experienced on stage with that play, meaning that the response of the audience was really special, I would say. Every night after every performance, people were waiting for us, not to say congratulations, but really to tell their own story, to share their own stories. And it was a way to say, as if they were saying, I know what you're talking about, because my brother, because my uncle, because my daughter. So I really experienced the fact that so many people were connected to that issue, and that there was something that had to be shared and told. And so that it was my instinct. And so I started with Christopher Hampton working on the script. So Christopher Hampton is a beautiful British writer, and we have this long relationship. He has translated all my plays in English. So we have shared so many over years, this adventure. And I was at that moment when I received the letter, the email, but I found it very romantic as well, because it's not something you are expecting to receive an email like that. Someone brave enough to express something he feels. I was really moved by, this approach. And the humility, the honesty, and the courage to do that. And it's true that we did that meeting together on Zoom, And I was not planning to make any decisions because it was just the first meeting. But after a few minutes, as you said, I really stopped the conversation and I offered Hugh the part because I felt something strongly that he would be extraordinary in this part. The fact that there was like an obvious, it was pure instinct. It's not something you said, by the way. It's just something I felt. But no, it's true that I felt that he was completely available to embrace this emotional adventure, and that he was somehow, sorry to say he in front of you, that you were connected deep down to these emotions. And so I knew that we would have the opportunity to explore something truthful and I hope impactful.
Right. Well, that happened. I want to ask all three actors a question. I'll start with Hugh Jackman, and then we'll cover the others. I got the feeling from the very beginning of the film that Peter's affable exterior is reassuring to everyone. In other words, you see he's in control of his life. He has everything that apparently one could want. And increasingly, we realize the tension underneath that until there's a kind of real break. Could you talk a little about how much of that was quite simply in the script, and any actor would be wrong not to simply follow the script, or how much was a question of rehearsal? Because theater directors traditionally have more time for rehearsals than film directors, and I didn't know whether that was a part of the process that was more or less significant.
I would largely say it was in the script. The script is a beautiful script. It's a beautiful play, and you have Florian and Christopher Hampton, who won the Oscar for The Father. Extraordinary storytellers. There was a lot as an actor. I'm sure Laura and Vanessa will say the same thing. There was so much for us to chew on, but it was there. This fight that all of us can relate to, no matter what is going on in our life. There's generally an optimism and a belief that we can control it. We can work through this. That I can. For Peter's character, I can be the one to help here. I can save this. I can really make the situation better for everybody, mainly his son. And I think also what I loved about the script, there was all in there. And you see it when the scene I have with Anthony Hopkins, where for a lot of the film, even as a reader, you're thinking of Zen's character as the son. And in that moment, in that scene, you realize, oh, we're all still sons and daughters. We carry that with us for our entire life. It informs all our decisions. It informs the pain. All of that upbringing really creates who we are and who we consciously decide to be, or who we unconsciously are acting out. So this was all there, and it was a great challenge and the adventure, but it was not actually sort of expounded on in rehearsals, because I was surprised. I'm from the theatre, and Florian obviously is a theatre writer, but we did very little rehearsal at all. We just read it. It might be better for Florian to explain why, but I was a little nervous about that because the scenes are long, the scenes are in depth, and they're detailed. But Florian invited all of us as actors to leap and to have no idea of where we're going to start or where we're going to end, but just to trust the process. I mean, Florian had an idea where it was going to start and end, but for all of us it was, let's come from where we're coming from, and let's play the scene, and let's trust in each other as actors. So it was an unusual, but ultimately very freeing experience for me.
With Laura, for example, I think one of the strongest scenes in the film is when you're having a martini with your ex-husband and finally say, I feel like such a failure. It's such a poignant moment in the film, but that's only one of many. Again, was that a question that simply you were able to get from the script, not rehearsal, right? That wasn't...
No. Yeah, we didn't rehearse that scene at all, or our scenes together. But it's, as I told Florian when I first spoke to him, it's one of the most extraordinary written scenes I've ever had the privilege to read. It encompasses everything in this marriage and divorce and original family unit. But what's so beautiful about the script, and I think I speak for all of us actors, is, you know, you hear about an ensemble, and then you're given this kind of writing, and we live, as a family does, like one organism, each of us experiencing together terror and heartbreak and longing to move on and worry and powerlessness about this boy or how we are impacting him or each other. And, you know, players in a part of this family unit, this family story, which was an amazing journey to go through, each of us with our own dynamics, and how we impact this boy is so different than the next one in the next scene or from scene to scene. But particularly the privilege of being directed by Florian and acting alongside amazing Hugh, playing out the story of a marriage and the longing to protect your child together while being divorced was just, I'd never read anything so beautiful. So it was really a privilege, and I too love the process of rehearsal, but I was grateful we weren't. I was grateful we got to continue to explore it over and over again in different ways and with your guidance, but in that raw experience of doing it on camera.
And for Vanessa, I guess I would push the question a little bit, because the last time that I saw you on screen that I recall was Pieces of a Woman, in which you have one of the most harrowing, a harrowing scene of childbirth. And this is not a spoiler alert because it happens within the first half hour of the film. The infant dies. And to begin the film, seeing you as the mother of a newborn infant, I sort of breathed a little sigh of relief because of intertextual reading. But the film begins with you and the baby, and you play a very important part in the development of the family unit, so to speak. Could you talk a little also about how, you know, from the words on the script, in the script, to how you created your character, especially in the absence of rehearsal, you know, what was the strongest aspect for you?
Thank you. It was definitely quite surreal, suddenly having a baby in a movie. And I said to Florian, I was like, it's so important because so much of what she is, she doesn't express, she's not able to express. That was my biggest challenge because I'm like very over-expressive in life. And so playing someone who wasn't able to say what they thought, and I found was the scariest thing actually about it, and the thing that I wanted to lean into. But they were a pair of twin boys, weren't they, that were the baby, played the baby in the movie. And I said to Florian, I was like, I've just got to get to know them and spend time with their mom and learn everything, because I know only, you know, for the last Piece of Woman, I learned about pregnancy and then losing child. So I went and spent many days with them and getting to know them and stuff. I couldn't believe how much they pooed. And it was a really beautiful experience for me to actually have it felt like an extension of that, because I actually got to have the experience, and I really bonded with them and they were beautiful. And yeah, we also shot, because it was meant to be in New York originally, and then it was COVID, and so actually we shot in a studio in London, although you don't like...
No, you can say that.
Yeah, you said.
It's supposed to be a secret.
It's supposed to be a secret. And it was something about, you know, because the whole thing kind of takes place for them in this flat, and it was COVID, and we were wearing face masks and visors and the whole thing, and then we just filmed in this small studio, and so there was a kind of claustrophobia around that. There was an intensity, I think, to the experience that they were having that kind of mirrored our experience of it. And I think the whole movie is so much about being unable to articulate something that's truly happening for you, and the vulnerability that takes to really express your pain, or even get hold of the words to do that, and what happens if you're not able to. And so a lot of that was, I think, how we... I found it very challenging, that actually just not being able to just scream about the situation, and everyone just kind of holds it together, and actually really I think everyone just wanted to to wail, which Hugh did so remarkably at the end. It was just, that day was quite extraordinary when you just let it all out.
And Florian, did you not want to have rehearsal because you did want the immediacy, the sort of rawness that develops in the characters?
Yes, mainly. I mean, as you said, we come from theater, and I loved the process of rehearsing, but I thought that it would be like more interesting to have to jump into the unknown altogether and to discover something about what we're trying to tell in the now, on set, altogether, and also without too many preconcept thoughts.
Preconceptions.
Preconception, in order to be sometimes overwhelmed by something we are not aware of, but suddenly, our deep connection to that story, I felt somehow every one of us felt connected to that story or to the necessity of telling it, and I thought that the best way to explore this necessity, this connection, was to not to go too much in the thoughts, but to try just to be alive in front of the camera. And because I was lucky enough to have the greatest in front of the camera, I thought that it was like a challenging, exciting, alive, and joyful to do it that way.
Sure.
And also maybe it's also a story about people who are trying to control the situation, and fix the situation. And I thought that it would be interesting for all of us, to be in a position where you do not control exactly what is going on, and somehow to leave a room for what you do not know yet.
On the other hand, though, the second time tonight watching the film, I was aware of how much control you as a director have of the visual storytelling. And for example, you even have a shot of Anthony Hopkins' head coming in from the back, and then a shot of Hugh's head from the back. And it almost felt like the camera was telling me that one of your themes might be the great one from Greek mythology: the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons.
Yeah.
And even there's a moment where you look in the mirror and you hate the resemblance to the father reflected in the mirror. Was this something that you were consciously thinking about?
Yes, thank you for noticing this moment. It's true that it's called the son, but somehow, at some point, I wanted the audience to feel and to feel before understanding that this father was also a son, as you said, a son in pain, and that's why probably he was not able to deal with the present, because he was completely taken by the past, and that he was just trying to be a better father than the one he had, or the father he would have loved to have. And so it was a lot about this circle of pain and trauma and how to break it, and how he was, that character, unable to break it. And this is what led to the wrong decisions somehow. And so it was a way, just very simple way, through a frame and a movement, to make the audience understand there is something about repetition that leads to tragedy.
And I gather you wrote the part of the father for Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. In this film, Today the Son, did you also write that scene of the father for Hopkins to play?
Yes, I did. I did because, to make a film is such an emotional journey. I feel so close to Vanessa, to Laura, to Hugh today, and the same, I would love to work with them again. And after the father, it was a long and intense journey with Anthony, but somehow we didn't have the chance to experience that together because everything was virtual after the film was out because of COVID. So I really wanted to have another time with him. And also, so many people came to me after the film to say, "Is he okay?" As if he was going through dementia himself. And I was like, no, he's just an extraordinary actor. And so it was funny to have the opportunity to do the opposite of what we did. Like this man really cruel, controlling absolutely the situation, just to remind everyone that he was in good shape.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, another release this fall is Armageddon Time, where Anthony Hopkins plays the polar opposite of the father figure here. He plays this amiable, Jewish grandfather. And I mean, you can tell this actor has a range that is quite amazing. Hugh, when I interviewed you on Zoom during the pandemic, you talked about how you prepare for a role physically by walking around the room as a character. I mean, I actually jotted it down so that I can get it right. You said that you got into the role that every character you create, you start walking around the room as me, and then try to find a more neutral version of me, and then start playing with different things. I took notes.
I'm not surprised.
Was that the case for The Son as well? In other words, no. Because you had more scenes, I think, sitting and standing than some of the other films where your physical movements are more expansive.
Yeah, no, I normally do that because I come from the theatre, and your voice and your body is a huge part of your instrument. Of course, your mind and your emotions, your spirit, but particularly on stage, you get to play so much with that. And I've always enjoyed that in film, and film actors who do that, like a Jeffrey Rush, you can see it. There's so many actors, Bill Nye. There's so many that I really love watching, whether they use their hand. Michael Gambon, look at the way he uses his hands. Or anyway, this fascinates me. So I really enjoy that. But with this, no. What Florian, I think, and I like to do a lot of research. It's part of the thing I love about being an actor. You're stepping into other people's worlds, experiences, being a lawyer, being a doctor, whatever it is, emotional situation. But Florian was like, it's nice you're doing that research, but you don't need to do all that. You're a father, you're a son, you know a lot of this, and let's just open our hearts and allow that to be there. Sure. So, no, one thing I was playing with, I know you always ask questions someone else asks, was this part of the body, that sternum. You see it a lot in New York. If you ever cross the street in New York, as soon as the light goes, the walk sign goes green, watch people's chests go up. And it's a little bit of a get out of my way, get out of my way. And it works, by the way, if you walk. So, and I notice I do that, and so I was noticing it rather than trying to play with it, but I was noticing it in Peter, because whether a lawyer or as a father or as an ex-husband or as a husband, he's trying to feel, I've got this, it's okay. And of course, what you can tell as an audience before he realizes is that he's sinking, and that. And it's an interesting part of the body, because if you just sit here now and do it, when you drop that, it feels relaxing. It can make you feel very vulnerable too. So that was the one physical thing I was noticing playing with this.
I'm going to also check when I cross the street in the future, because I'm very aggressive, and being tiny, I have to be aggressive walking through Manhattan streets. I sometimes feel like Dustin Hoffman's character in Marathon Man. I'm walking here. But that particular description is very evocative. I wanted to ask, actually, both Laura and Vanessa first, and then you too, Hugh, to compare working with Florian Zeller, who obviously does come from theater, has made 2 magnificent films, and I'm sure there will be many more. But you've all worked with such a range of truly fine directors. So if I start with Laura Dern, David Lynch, Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig, my colleague and former student Ramin Barani in 99 Homes, I adore his work, Jean-Marc Vallée, Alexander Payne, Jay Roach. If you haven't seen Recount, this is a film that was made for HBO where Laura Dern gives a dazzling performance as Florida's Secretary of State at the time. The film has great relevance for our moment, and I can't recommend it too highly.
I apologize in advance.
No, you were wicked good. And Spielberg, Jurassic Park, for example. Is there something about the way that Florian directed you here that is either different from or comparable to some of these amazing directors?
Yes. No actor has ever felt more loved. No actor could ever feel more safe.
Wow.
And the presumption that when your character is in pain or conflict, that creating a tumultuous or even aggressive environment would provoke art is so weird. I don't know who started that idea, but I've not seen it work out well. And I have been with very luckily, very nurturing people. But as we always laughed about, no one who at the end of each take would come to you, would take the time to come to you, to check in with you, to question and work together about what else there is to explore, or, as we all know, to say, congratulations. Which is such a beautiful thing to be told by a director when you're in the middle of work, but you're a partner in his direction. He's questioning and asking and suggesting as he's looking at you for guidance on what we can explore next. It's such a different dynamic. There's nothing authoritarian. It's storytellers together as, again, one organism. I have not experienced that, and it's the most beautiful gift, and just opens you up to, all the magic that's around you and that's possible, including with his crew, including with the filmmaking and the angles. So that alone is the gift of a lifetime. Makes you feel very privileged to be an actor and want to give him anything as he's finding his way to the story that's right for what he wants to make. So that's just amazing.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
You make me uncomfortable. But I just realized that the congratulation thing was a joke during the shooting, but I just understood it like a few weeks ago. That's my accent, right? But I would say that, something very special I think about Laura is that, maybe I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons you are an actress is really about the way you see a relationship with a director, as if it was everything, that relationship, the joy of searching together how to tell a story. That process, as far as I've felt it or experienced it with you, is everything about cinema, and it's something that I was really, really impressed with and touched by. It's really, as a director, you feel like you can share that journey in the most beautiful way.
Yeah. And Vanessa, I know that so much of your work thus far acclaimed has been in theater, but I know you worked with one of my favorite directors, Agnieszka Holland, for the film Mr. Jones, which I highly recommend to everyone. This was made a few years ago, but deals with Ukraine at a moment in history when Stalin was destroying the Ukrainian people and taking away all their wheat. But also, obviously, Cornel, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Mundrushko, for Pieces of a Woman. That's the primary example I have in my head of a contrast to the film that we watched tonight. But could you talk a little from your perspective of working with Florian versus some
I'm
of
sorry
the
for
others?
that.
My pleasure. Well, I think probably it's, Florian, it's amazing to work with a writer-director. It's my favorite thing because it's someone so in command of the whole. It's not someone being like, I'm not really, I don't need, this scene hasn't come from me. So, and there's obviously 1,000 different nuances to working with in all of different situations. But what I loved with Florian was, this literally came from his soul. And he also knew it so intimately because it was his play and he'd done it in different countries already, and you knew that it was something in you that you so wanted to express. And I've said this before and I will keep saying it, that what I love is the courage to share any pain or corner of difficulty in yourself as a writer or creative. Or as an audience member, when you watch something and you have some kind of communion with something, whether it's recognizing loneliness or grief that we all experience in life in any way. And I love filmmakers who dare to represent those difficult things. And Florian is one of the most daring. The father was searingly so. This is so brave, I think, to really uncompromisingly look at the difficulty that the film contains, and for that, I think it's awesome, and I loved being a part of it.
Well, it seems to me that if there are any actors in the audience, you're getting a sense of what it is. Who do you want to work with most, and start creating a resume that he might appreciate. For Hugh, I mean, you've been on this stage with me twice. Once with Jason Reitman, a wonderful director, and once with Sean Levy, who was once upon a time my student at Yale. So I'm going to mention just a few others for and to remind everybody of the great work you've done. James Mangold with The Wolverine and Logan and Kate and Leopold. Christopher Nolan, The Prestige. Denis Villeneuve with Prisoners. Darren Aronofsky, The Fountain. Woody Allen for Scoop. I could go on and on. What is it that a director like Florian or any of the others can give you apart from, especially what Laura was describing as this incredible sense of trust, confidence? Can you compare them?
Yeah, you can compare them. So it's like Laura and Vanessa saying, for me, it's a vital part of the process. In the theatre, you spend all that time in the rehearsal room creating together. And then when you're on stage, you very much rely on your fellow actors, the story, and the audience every night. In film, I've never felt it as strongly before. I would describe Florian as like a brother. And I don't say that lightly. I know, you're a brother. But I mean, in terms of the strength when I felt weak, the courage that you gave me when I also was scared, where the vision you had when I was unsure, I always felt that was there. And what that allows me to do as an actor is to leap and take a risk, make mistakes. There was one scene I remember on our second day. I don't even know what happened. It was a scene where we were just in the kitchen talking about, and I just started bawling my eyes out in the middle of the scene. It was completely inappropriate. And I think I apologized to you, and you said, no, sorry. No, this is perfect. It's okay. We just keep going. We just keep going and keep exploring. And I felt very free because of the care and the strength and the love and the willingness, the vulnerability, actually, that you have as a director to open yourself up to what actors are bringing and also to gently guide them. It's a very difficult thing to do. I've never directed. I don't know if I've been made for it. I don't know if I would be able to do that. But you have an unbelievable sensitivity matched with an incredible vision and strength. It's such a rare thing. And as you say beautifully, Vanessa, as a writer, as a storyteller, so there's this, as a combination, extremely hard to find. And I feel it as an actor, but I think you, or in this movie or in The Father, you feel it as an audience. When I watch your movie, when I watch The Father, I was being brought into feeling something, really getting into the head of Anthony Hopkins in The Father, understanding what that is like, what that would be like. And it's that same strength and sensitivity that you give to the audience. And it's a beautiful thing. And I hope you call on me as many times as you like for future. And I'm not saying that just to be a stalker, which I am, but I mean it. It was one of the great experiences of my life, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful. And
thank you. Me too.
Yeah, I haven't compared him to anyone else, actually. Sorry, but your question, I think I've avoided it, but I've just...
No, I'm getting a sense of real homage that everyone is...
But I say brother because also it's... And weirdly, I think Florian is younger than me. I feel of you as a slightly older brother. Like, it's that feeling, which I, as the youngest of 5 kids, I clearly like.
So you can feel how lucky I've been and I was, because we were all together, I think very together to try to tell that story. And to me, it means the world, because I felt that it was so important for every one of us to tell that story, as you said, to dare telling that story, because it was not an easy one, but also we felt that, we needed to face that question of pain, because we had the feeling that there is so much ignorance or so much guilt or so much denial around these topics that we really wanted to, even if sometimes it was painful for all of us, but to explore these situations when you do not know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
And it was what we wanted to share with you as a question.
And so much of the film, especially towards the end, leads us to feel the tension and the pain of the characters. I was made aware that not only were you shooting during COVID, which created its own set of tensions and interactions, but you were dealing with enactments of mental health breakdown. And I gather that you had on set a support system of therapists, people that you could talk to, because obviously playing these kinds of parts can elicit powerful emotional questions. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I was so moved that you and your fellow producers made sure it was for all of us. The entire crew had that support because we were all telling this story together, and I think it's fair to say it was triggering and bringing up everyone's story, particularly in this time. And I think that was really embraced by the crew, and it was one of the rare experiences of my life where every day at work someone else was sharing their personal experience, particularly in the psychiatric hospital. A lot of crew were going through a lot, and all of it emotionally informed the urgency of your vision, and I was particularly moved that was given as an opportunity for people to have mental health support.
Yeah, but it was not about telling a sad story or a tragic story just for the sake of telling a tragic story. It's really because I think that tragedy is preventable and suicide is preventable. If we feel more comfortable talking about it, if we are more comfortable talking about our pain. And so it was about trying to open that conversation through characters that you can feel that they are all trying everything to help. They are good fathers, mothers, stepmothers, and with the best intentions. And sometimes it's not enough, because you are completely taken by your own past, your guilt, or your ignorance. So it was about experiencing, someone who wants so much to help, but he wants to open the doors, but they don't have the right keys. So it was a way to invite all of us questioning how we take care of people around us, and that was my intention.
Good. And for Hugh, you are a father. You have 2 children. I was curious to what extent the role of playing Peter has affected you as a father.
Oh, it's changed me deeply. I'm a lot more vulnerable with my kids than I was before. I think I held on to that slightly old-fashioned idea of kids want stability. They want to know that you're a source of strength. And actually, I have a 22 and 17-year-old. Obviously, it's different at different ages. But since doing the movie, I'm far more likely to say, I don't know. Sorry if I appear like this. This is actually what's going on. Sorry, I've been a bit distant. I'm worried about this. And I see the relief, actually. And the conversation we had after watching this movie, was about 2 hours long at our dinner table. My kids don't normally want to sit with me for 2 hours, but they were really into the discussion. I'm so impressed with kids of 17 and 22. They want to have this conversation. Mm-hmm. They want to talk about it. They're not sheepish or shy about it at all. And anyway, it really has changed me, and definitely, I think both my kids, if they were here, would say, oh yeah, no, he's kind of different, maybe more annoying, but I am different. and grateful for it, because I think that vulnerability, that if we can lead with vulnerability, even with our children and in our friendships and even at work to a certain degree, I think it connects us to everybody and makes a far richer experience, because just because you're a father and just because you've been a son doesn't mean you know what to do. You know, you could have 15 kids and still really know what to do. You know, we're all fumbling around a little bit, and I think the more we understand, a lot of the time we don't know. We need help. We lean on our friends, and leading with that vulnerability, I think, has been the biggest difference.
We are going to take some questions from the audience, so I'm just going to start preparing for that. I believe that there are ushers with microphones, and I'm going to try very hard to see properly and call upon one or two. I have a lot more questions, but I do not want anyone to feel left out of this family discussion. After all, what is the film about? Now, wait, actually, I'm seeing a lot also on this. All right, we're going to start on the left-hand side here. There is... I'm sorry, if you can just pass the microphone. Great.
Hello. Hi. I had to say something. I wanted to defend my husband, but he said the truth. I live to go see you in shows and movies.
Thank you.
When I see you in musicals or plays, I've seen whatever you've done numerous times, the joy, especially let's talk about Music Man, the joy is just so evident on your face. I mean, in every scene that you do. And I was wondering, I mean, you can go home and say, boy, the audience was with me, it was a great performance. How do you feel differently when you have a successful day in a movie shoot, but you don't have that audience feedback? And you get really amazing audience feedback, led by me, as often as possible. It has to feel different. I mean, I'm sure it's satisfaction, but it has to feel really different, no?
It's really satisfying in a different way. If you do a scene with Vanessa Kirby or Laura Dern, you finish the day pinching yourself at how lucky you are to be working on such a beautiful script, to have those words. I'll admit there's a sadness to it that I only get at the end of a run in theatre, because at the end of every night I go, I get to do it again tomorrow. I mean, I'm that guy. I'm like, I get to do it twice tomorrow. Like, I'm annoying. Some of the people in the theatre, they're like, 2 shows. I'm like, yeah. But sometimes, that scene we had in the restaurant is a beautiful, beautiful scene, beautifully written scene. I remember reading it, going, that day, it's going to be challenging. And at the end of it, it feels like not that you've run a marathon, but imagine you've run a marathon or done a show and you're in the bath and you're just lying there going, I'm tired, but that feels so good. Like, even if you're crying or bawling your eyes out or whatever, there's a deep sense of satisfaction of doing everything you could with the people that you admire most about on the planet, and a little bit of sadness that you don't get to do it again. That's the other one. But it is deeply, deeply satisfying in a different way. And it may be weird, but I ask all the actors I work with to clap me at the end of my takes. But
Okay, I'm seeing a whole lot of hands. One here on the aisle, and then there's a gentleman in the middle.
I was just curious on the process for casting Nicholas. How many did you try out for? I mean, I thought he was wonderful personally.
Thank you. So it was in COVID time, so it was not possible at that time to meet in person the actors. So I knew at that point who would be the family, Vanessa, Laura, and Hugh. And I started that fascinating process, which is to look for a face you do not know yet, because what I knew is that it would be like someone we don't know, because he was supposed to be 17. So I saw many tapes, that I received, self-tapes, and boys from New York, from the UK, and some of them from Australia. And I really remember when I saw that tape from Zen McGrath, I had this intuition that he was the one straight away. And because there was something about like an opacity, is it an English word? Opacity? You cannot tell exactly what is going on through him, his soul. You feel something, and still there is something that is opaque. And that was something that I felt that was very interesting for that part, because I really didn't want to tell too much about this pain, you know. I wanted that pain to be like a mystery. You do not understand exactly what it is and how to deal with it. Of course, in the story, he mentioned the divorce as an explanation, because when you're in pain, you really want to have someone or something to blame for. But the truth is that I think this is a mystery. There are so many explanations, you know, psychological, chemical, biological, and that's unfair, and that's difficult to accept that there is no answer. But also it gives a key, meaning that, you know, it would make no sense to blame someone for having a heart issue or a stomach issue. And I think we should think the same way, you know, with people struggling with pain. This is not their fault. We have to just to be there for them and to have no judgment. And so that's why it's important for me to have an actor that somehow create this mystery, you know. This mystery you cannot exactly read. And so I did another meeting with him just to see how he would react to directions. And so the producers, they were a bit, are you sure? Because he comes from Australia, and there will be like maybe an accent issue, and it's in COVID times, everything is more complicated. But I really, really wanted him to be with us. And I think we have all been very impressed by his commitment and his generosity. But it was helped for him by the fact that he was so well welcomed by all of you. You know, they were very generous with him so that he could embrace his part.
Thank you. We have up there with the nosebleeds. Do we have a microphone up there?
We do not, but I can project.
Go for it.
I love it.
Thank you for a beautiful film. I wanted to ask, as creative artists, what was the cost for you creatively to tell this story? Thank you.
Guys want to start?
Who is going to answer to that question?
You want
to? Thank you for this question. It's not easy to answer. To me, I mean, maybe my answer would be different, but that story comes from a personal place. When I wrote the play a few years ago, it was not my story, but it's definitely connected to things I went through. So it was a way to not to tell my own story, because I think it's not enough, you know, to make a film, but at least to share things that I have experienced or discovered. And so there is like a healing process, I would say, to go through these dark places. But yeah, so it was a way to maybe to break a circle, I would say, which the character is not doing in the film.
Actually, if I can piggyback on that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you want to add something? No. At the end, it says to Gabriel. And if I understand correctly, as I did a little research, you have a stepson named Gabriel. And he did have difficulties in his teen years, but is now, I gather, doing well in his 20s. Is that where, that's the personal place that?
Yes, it is. And it's true that I was not certain about this dedication in the end. You know, it took me a long time to decide if it was the right thing to do or not. But because at some point I was like, maybe I think that I'm trying to invite people not to shy away from these conversations. So maybe what I should do is not to shy away from it, because I profoundly feel that there is no shame, or it should be no shame about going through this kind of difficulties. So that's why I did that, to be honest.
On the aisle, yes.
Hello. Oh, it's working. Okay. Hi, I'm a therapist in New York City, and this is actually my specialty, is self-harm and suicidal ideation with parents, with kids, so I really appreciated this film. I think you really nailed the feeling on the head. I'm curious, As therapists, we absorb a lot from our clients when we, approach the subject. As far as the actors, what did you do for boundaries when it came to the emotions that came up? What did you do for self-care afterwards? I'm curious to hear from both of you.
It's a little bit of this same question in a way, and thank you for saying that, and thank you for your work. And I was a bit of a hot mess during this, and luckily for me, my family were with me. I think the cost probably was more for my wife, to be honest. I had been up to then a pretty good sleeper. I was not a good sleeper. My father passed away during the filming, and it was I was a hot mess. And luckily was with incredible, actors and a beautiful director who just allowed me to be me. And I guess that was all. I love that you use the word healing, that there is through the work a healing if you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, even if you're acting. And that's a real start. So I would journal every morning. Didn't matter what time my call time was, I would get up and I would journal, and I would start with the words I feel, because I need to get this out. And I remember that I'm a meditator. There's other things I did, but I really tried to share what I was going through rather than just to hold it in. I remember the other thing I'd never done before in a film. I'm not sure if I told you guys this, but there was that final scene of the movie. I remember that morning. I remember writing, I'm really scared. I don't know what's going to happen on this day. My father passed away about 3 days before. I was really just all over the place. And I wrote down the names of every crew member. And I just remember saying, I need their help. And I wrote every one of their name down. And so when I went into that room where we were shooting, and that, not just the actors, but I looked at every one of them, even when they weren't looking at me. It was, an uncomfortable scene. But normally I would try to somehow just get into my bubble in a scene like that. And I had an instinct of, no, I can't do this alone. So I'm trying to give you examples, I guess, of self-care as an actor or going through that thing. And it comes down to being honest about your feelings, about sharing them, and relying on others for help.
Vanessa, did you want to add anything to this?
I think to me, the greatest thing is about getting to the opportunity to have a kind of pseudo-lived experience, and inhabit something about being human. And I've always felt, probably because I know we probably all feel like this having come from theatre, but the audience is just so important because you don't have one without the other, if you know what I mean. So you're kind of, when you're inhabiting something, I think you're always thinking on behalf of other humans as well. Do you know what I mean? There's such an honour of trying to access something that you perhaps haven't experienced yourself, whether it's isolation or loneliness or whatever it might be. And for me, what I feel an overwhelming gratitude, because I know I always come out of every project with more empathy for something perhaps I didn't know about before. And that is just, no matter what I experience on a, essentially a non-reality, space, I always am different after it. And I always, whether it's something like grief, after touching grief really profoundly for several months, now if anyone's going through something like that, I feel so different with them, and I'm able to be better for them. I'm so grateful for that. So I don't know if that answers the question, but empathy to me is just ever expanding, and there's so much more to learn about things we don't know about, or even the unconscious blocks we have in our mind around things that we haven't known yet. So that to me is always, gratitude comes with that.
And Laura, maybe?
Well, I would just add in answering maybe both questions, like this idea of creative cost, or, the creative cost it's a creative gift. and also a gift of healing in terms of the process. We were, along with all of you, in this insane, deeply unnerving time of the pandemic, and we only had each other. Unlike other films, the gift within that is there were no distractions. We weren't going out to dinner with other friends. We were in a bubble, so we were together. After work, we were still in it, and we kind of remained in this movie the whole time we were in the movie. And one gift for me, which I found quite upsetting and clearly was the character, and unintentionally she was with me day and night, and I think because we were all in it day and night and I had decided we were fine now, is overwhelming anxiety at all times. And I too was having a hard time sleeping, and then it struck me that it was a mother with no answers, a mother with no healing, a mother who couldn't fix it, a mother out of control. And it was bleeding into my own experience and my worry, and I haven't had that on a film in such an overwhelming way. And I think we all shared that. It just, in the writing, in the being, and in the bubble that we were, it was a bit of an inescapable thing, but it gave me so much empathy and compassion to, as Florian created for us, to remove the shame of what I felt like was the collective for all of us, which is we were all out of control. We didn't know what's next. The world suddenly was a very uncertain place. And I think, too, as Vanessa said, it's given me more compassion toward myself and everybody else on the street all the time, whether they're crossing the street like this or they're like this. I'm like, I know you're anxious and I know you're in pain. I am, too. So I have a lot of conversations in crosswalks. But it's mostly with you.
I know there are more questions, but we are actually, all right, the last one, the person on the aisle there.
Hi, thank you so much. It's funny you mentioned gifts, because Hugh, I actually do have a belated birthday present for you. I'll leave it right at the end, like you can take it or leave it, no pressure.
Thank you.
My question is actually for you and Florian. You guys seem to be getting along really well. Have you talked about, you're both from the theater world, doing a play? I mean, it's been a while since Marvel has had a play on Broadway.
I would love it. I would love it. I think Florian is an incredible writer, and I would love to do
Me
work
too.
with you on stage.
But the thing is that Hugh is on stage now, so it's not now.
Are you possibly going to make a film version of The Mother? Because it seems like...
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of a trilogy, as I did on stage. But to be completely transparent, it takes so much energy, time, desire to make a film. I'm still with the son now, sharing with you, and it's about to come out. So I'm really here, so I don't know.
Although I did read, and I'm not sure if this is true, that you might be directing a TV movie of the Lehman trilogy. Is this possible?
Yes, I mean, we are working on it.
Now, that would be quite a departure in the sense that we are all emphasizing that Florian Zeller is a writer-director. You have directed your own brilliant work. The Lehman trilogy, of course, is a pre-existing and massive theatrical event that would become a film on television. So that you're working on that, but not yet a definite thing?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to live with that incertitude for a little while. We are going to have to end. I'm so sorry that we don't have time for more questions. I'm very grateful that Vanessa Kirby, Florian Zeller, Laura Dern, and Hugh Jackman have joined us tonight. And Annette, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.